On New Year's Day this year, I received an email from the wife of Reverend Frank Hall. She gave me his permission for me to share this talk with you. I've made no changes in it, except for a few minor edits that I always make to let it roll off my lips a little bit easier. I hope that you will all agree that the guidance that Reverend Hall spoke about, living an UU life, is as instructive today as it was 13 years ago in Connecticut. We humans are a complicated lot, and we are learning more and more how complicated we are. We have this thing called consciousness, awareness, or a degree of enlightenment, if you will. In the book titled Strangers to Ourselves, Timothy Wilson, who studies human consciousness, writes, "The human mind can take in 11 million pieces of information at any given moment. But the most generous estimate is that people can be conscious of 40 of these. 40. I don't know how you can measure the possibility of 11 million pieces of information, but I understand the point. We have a degree of consciousness, and we have a much larger degree of unconsciousness. David Brooke, in his book, The Social Animal, says, some researchers have gone so far as to suggest that the unconscious mind does virtually all the work, and that consciousness may be an illusion. Brooks goes on to say, the conscious mind merely confabulates stories that try to make some sense of what the unconscious mind is doing of its own accord. As I understand it, the kind of stories that Brooks says we confabulate are called religion, poetry, autobiography, journalism, and all other kinds of speechifying. Brooks writes, the outer mind hungers for status, money, and applause. The inner mind hungers for harmony and connection, which he defines as those moments when self-consciousness fades away and a person is lost in a challenge, a cause, the love of one another, the love of God. So, we are here to connect, not only to connect with one another, but to make a deeper connection to ourselves, to make a better connection to the unconscious mind. The sacred literature of all religion does just that. How do I know? Because the literature has survived the revolutions and the reformations, the huge changes of the past 1,000 years. It lasts, I believe, because it touches 11 million things in the subconscious mind. These religious stories are so powerful that many truly believe them to be literal truth. And in a deep, deep way, they are. They are. They are, in fact, truer than true because they connect us. They connect our little surface conscious mind to the deep well we call unconscious mind. These religious stories are so powerful that... Good to keep track of where you're at. I already said that part. To the deep, deep well we call the unconscious mind. And that part of us is always at work. That part of us is the part of us filled with memory and meaning. The unconscious mind is doing most of the work of making sense out of this life, the work of moving through the days and nights, the work of making decisions when you stand at two roads that diverge in the wood. Some of those stories are framed in a form we loosely call poetry, the use of metaphor and simile, comparing the things we know on the surface to the things that lie way deep down inside ourselves. Poetry sometimes reaches in and touches those places, the sacred places, if you will. If Timothy Wilson and his fellow researchers are right, our conscious life is directed by the vast unconscious wellspring that we inherit and carry with us from moment to moment. Poetry, then, is one way to get in touch with what's moving inside us down there where the spirit meets the bone. The poet, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, once described how his young son, then 3 years old, woke during the night and called out to his mother, "Touch me, only touch me with your finger," the young boy pleaded. The child's mother was astonished. "Why?" she asked. "I'm not here," the boy cried. "Touch me, mother, so I can be here." To be touched is to become real, to be connected to another. In the Sistine Chapel, Michelangelo painted God and Adam reaching hands toward each other to touch one another, but they don't quite touch. The traditional interpretation is that God is giving life to man, that God breathed the breath of life into the clay, and the story says man became a living soul. My interpretation of Michelangelo's painting of God and man reaching toward another is that man reaches but never quite connects with God. That man must connect with other men, with other women, with other souls, to become human, to evolve, to move toward God, to take on God-like qualities like love, kindness, and compassion. Now, I would like to share a poem with you that touches me. Maybe it has touched you, or it might touch you now. Do you know the poem by Robert Frost, The Death of the Hired Man? Frost's poem is a narrative, a short story, about two people, husband and wife, Mary and Warren, who are talking about Silas, their hired hand on a hay farm. While Warren was in town running errands, Mary took Silas in. She had pity on him, but Warren is still angry with Silas. Angry because last year Silas left him during haying time when he needed him the most. Warren and Mary talk about home, about what home means. They talk about forgiveness, pride, self-respect. They talk about aging and money, or the lack of it. The poem begins with Mary musing on a lamp flame. Our muse calls us now to reach down into the deeper level of our unconscious minds for meaning. The Death of the Hired Man, Robert Frost. Mary sat, musing on the lamp flame at the table, waiting for Warren. When she heard his step, she ran on tiptoe down the darkened passageway to meet him at the doorway with news and to put him on his guard. Silas is back. She pushed him out with her toward the door and shut it after. "Be kind," she said. She took the market things from Warren's arms, set them down on the porch, drew him down to sit beside her on the wooden steps. When was I ever anything but kind to him? I'll not have that fellow back, he said. I told him so last haying time, didn't I? If he left then, I said, that ended it. What good is he? Who else will help him at his age for the little he can do? What help he is, there's no depending on. Off he goes when I need him the most. He thinks he ought to earn a little pay, enough at least to buy tobacco, so he won't have to beg or to be beholding. All right, I say, but I can't afford to pay you any wages. Though I wish I could, someone else can, he says. Then someone else will have to. I shouldn't mind his bettering himself if that was what it was. You can be certain. When he begins like that, there's someone at him trying to coax him off with pocket money. And they're doing it in haying time when any help is scarce. In winter, he will come back to us. I'm done. Shh, not so loud. I want him to hear me. He'll have to sooner or later. Warren, he's worn out. He's asleep beside the stove. Warren, when I came up from Rose, I found him here, huddled against the barn door, fast asleep. A miserable sight, and frightening too. You needn't smile. I didn't recognize him. I wasn't looking for him. And he's changed. Wait till you see. Where did you say he'd been? He didn't say. I dragged him to the house and gave him tea. I tried to make him smoke. I tried to make him talk about his travels. Nothing would do. He just kept nodding off. What did he say? Did he say anything? But little. Anything, Mary, confess. I bet he said he'd come to ditch the meadow for me. Warren. But did he? I just want to know. Of course he did. But what would you have him say? Surely you wouldn't grudge the poor old man some humble way to save his self-respect. He said, if you really care to know, he said he meant to clear the upper pasture too. That sound like something you've ever heard before? Warren, I wish you could have heard the way he jumbled everything. I stopped to look 2 or 3 times to see if he was talking in his sleep. He made me feel so queer. He ran on about Harold Wilson. You remember him? The boy you had to help in, the boy you had in to help with haying 4 years ago? Harold's finished school, and he's teaching in college. Silas declares you'll have to get Warren back. Silas declares you'll have to get Harold back. He says the two will make a grand team for work, the way they mix that in with other things. Between them, they will lay this farm smooth. He thinks young Wilson a likely lad, though daft on education. You know how they fought all through July, under the blazing sun, Silas up on the cart to build the load, Harold alongside to pitch up the hay. Yes, I took care to keep well out of earshot. Well, those days trouble Silas like a dream. You wouldn't think they would, but some things linger. Harold's young college boy assurance piqued Silas. After so many years, he still keeps finding good arguments he might have used. I sympathize. I know how it feels to think of the right thing to say too late. Harold is associated in Silas's mind with Latin. Silas asked me what I thought of Harold saying he studied Latin like the violin because he liked it. That an argument? He said he couldn't make the boy believe that he could find water with a hazel prong, which showed how much good school had ever done him. He wanted to go over that. But most of all, he wishes he could have another chance to teach Harold how to build a load of hay. I know. That is Silas's one accomplishment. He bundles every forkful in its place and tags and numbers it for future reference so that he can find and easily dislodge it in the unloading. Silas does that well. He takes it out in bunches like big bird's nest. You never see him standing on the hay he's trying to lift, straining to lift himself. He thinks he could teach him that. Harold would be good some, to perhaps to anyone in the world. He hates to see the boy the fool of books. Poor Silas, so concerned for other folks, nothing to look forward to with pride, nothing to look forward to with hope. So it is now, and never any different. Part of the moon was falling down the west, dragging the whole sky with it toward the hills. Its light poured softly on Mary's lap. She opened her apron to it. She put out her hand among the harp-like morning glory strings, taut with dew from garden bed to eaves, as if she played unheard the tenderness that came upon her husband beside her in the night. Warren, he has come home to die. You needn't be afraid he'll leave you this time. Home. Home, he mocked gently. Yes, what else but home? It all depends on what you mean by home. Of course, he's nothing to us any more than was the hound that came a stranger to us out of the woods, worn out about the trail. Home is the place where when you have to go there, they have to take you in. I should have called it home as something you haven't come to deserve. Warren leaned out, took a step or two, picked up a little stick, brought it back, broke it in his hand, tossed it by. Silas has more claim on us, you think, than on his brother? 13 little miles as the road winds would bring him to his door. Silas has walked that far, no doubt, today. Why didn't he go there? His brother's rich, a somebody, director of a bank. He never told us that. We know it, though. I think his brother ought to help. I'll see to that if there is need. He ought of right to take him in, and may be willing to. The brother may be better than appearances. But take some pity on Silas. Do you think if he had any pride in claiming kin or anything he looked for from his brother, he'd keep so still about it all this time? I wonder what's between them. I can tell you, Silas is what he is. We wouldn't mind him, but he's the kind that kinfolk can't abide. He never did a thing so very bad. We don't know why he isn't quite as good as anyone. He won't be made ashamed of to please his brother, worthless though he is. I can't think that Silas ever hurt anyone. No, but he hurt my heart the way he laid and rolled his old head on that sharp-edged chairback. He wouldn't let me put him on the lounge. You must go in and see what you can do. I made the bed up for him. You'll be surprised at how much he's broken. His working days are done, I'm sure of it. I'll not be in a hurry to say that. I haven't been. Go, look, see for yourself. But Warren, please remember how it is. He's come to help you ditch the meadow. He has a plan. You mustn't laugh at him. He may not speak of it, and then he may. I'll sit here and see if that small sailing cloud will hit or miss the moon. The cloud hit the moon. Then there were three there, making a dim row. The moon, the little silver cloud, and she. Warren returned, too soon it seemed to her, slipped to her side, caught up her hand and waited. Warren? She questioned. Dead, was all he answered.